Okay, welcome everyone to the Resumania with the STEM Network Discord channel. I'm Emily, and we are going to be looking at some resume layouts today, and then sort of going to, if there's extra time, maybe going into more detail with each resume. As you know, please stop me if you have any questions. I like this to be more of a discussion than a lecture. And I think that's it. And I'm coming from a U.S. perspective with my edits. Different culture or different countries usually have different standards for resumes. So I just kind of want to get that as a disclaimer out there at the beginning. So let's get started. What do you guys think of this orange and I guess my this is what it actually looks like. It's not as orange. What do you guys think of it? First impressions?
Way too busy.
Busy? Okay. All right, Jade, what do you think for your 7 seconds?
It's not defined. Like, there's these honor society, and then you have this experience. It's not with the other experiences. It's like reading a newspaper where they just, ran out of stuff and then started their experience in that column instead of having, your sidebar column specifically with your, skills and, whatever, and then the experience in the main part.
I think I know what you're saying. You're saying that this professional experience here actually is also a title for this section.
Correct. I wouldn't have an even split. I would probably make it like a third and then 2/3, and then all the skills and everything at the top can go in the side column, and then you can have your experience in one nice column, because that's what people really want to read anyway.
This is super confusing to have 2 columns but not kind of indicate that the left column is filling over to the right side and is just a continuation. When I first look at this resume, I kind of don't know where to look first. I mean, my eye obviously goes to the very top first, and I see the education section. But there are 3 columns in the education section. And the skills seem to be all sort of soft skills. And they aren't like they're in a column, not a column. They're in a comma list. Same with the technologies. It's interesting, I think, that they break up the skills and technologies like separately. I guess technologies is more like the software that they've touched.
I'd say data management and lean manufacturing aren't necessarily soft. There could be more definition as to what exactly they mean by that.
Yeah, soft, I think I meant both like soft, like public speaking, but also like conceptual, I guess, maybe. So like the concept of statistical analysis and data management. It's not like a specific software, right? Like the technology section.
Yeah.
So
is lean an actual thing, or is that part of Six Sigma?
Lean and Six Sigma are separate.
They're related but different. But so after I am kind of confused about the education section, I don't really know whether to read like the left column or the right column. I kind of split. Like, do I go academic society or do I go to drug inspection? And I don't particularly like when resumes kind of make you choose rather than telling you. So if this resume was all one column, then I wouldn't have to make that choice, because I would just read top to bottom and wouldn't have to deal with left or right. So I think that's intrinsically why I prefer single column resumes to 2-column resumes. And this is an especially poor example of a 2-column resume, just because that single section is split up into, kind of straddling both left and right columns. I don't know if lines dividing them probably wouldn't help at this point. But yeah, what do you think about this academic society? So this is like their dean's list stuff, their scholarship, their I guess they're in like kind of clubs. There's maybe the Institute of Industrial and System Engineers is like kind of like ASME or AIAA.
It's like AIA. I think it's a student chapter chair, not a professional chair.
Okay. So I guess that's kind of listing out like memberships, I'm guessing maybe is a better term for it. Academic society, I have no idea what that means, obviously, because I struggled trying to figure out what was going on there.
Some colleges have like an internal like academic honor society for if you have a GPA higher than whatever you can pay. At my school, I think it was a flat fee of $90, and they're supposed to give you job placement help and letters of recommendation and things like that. But at my school, it was just, well, it is what it is.
It's like, sorry, only people that can afford $90 fee, you get it. Like, why not make it free? That's silly to me. But anyways, going on with this layout, I really actually like the font. I think the font is super easy to read and clear. I think the like blue orange thing that they got going on, I don't know if it's helping because it kind of is a little distracting, especially because my eyes seem to be drawn to the orange stuff more than the blue stuff. I don't know about you guys. But what else? Then they've got these like chunks of, obviously the each bullet looks pretty beefy because they're like a lot of lines, right? Because they just don't have the margin that you would have with a 1-column resume. So what I like to do with these resumes,
I'd make the text a little bit thicker or darker, or maybe reduce some of the stuff in the academic society, because that's really overbearing the rest of the resume.
Yeah, I totally agree. The bolding in the academic society like really pulls your eye 100%. And I think it's probably the least relevant section in the whole resume in my mind, right? At least that's how I'm feeling. And the fact that they like kind of, you're meant to read that section first, like maybe they're super proud of it, but I don't know if it's the strongest part of the resume. I don't think it is. But let's look at like the actual text and where the text is and where it is not. So when you use a 2-column resume, let's see the text. We got text here. We got some text here and down here, and then we have these like 3 little like blurbs, right? And then the name up here. So we have margin both on the left-hand side and the right-hand side, right? We have this margin on the left. We have this margin on the right. But because you're using 2 columns, you also need a margin in the middle. And I think that kind of takes up space that, otherwise we could use, for content instead of having to visually break up the resume. And kind of the same thing goes for in between these columns. Like they do have the left and the right column, the margins, but they also need to kind of squish that stuff to make it fit in that like sort of 3-column setup they got going on. So I personally think this is kind of my sort of reasoning of why I don't like 2-column resumes. I think they waste space. Because if you have a single column resume, then these 2 blocks become 1 block, and you don't need to worry about that, margin in the middle there. What are your guys' thoughts on that? I know that I've looked at a lot of resumes, so that's kind of how I feel, but I could see how some people visually like the 2-column better. But this one in particular, as Jade said, it reads like a newspaper, which I think is unfortunate. Thoughts? Agree? Disagree? I was told to use more colors.
The orange bar on the left isn't helping. Yes. It makes it look more unbalanced because the bullets on the left side are indented more so than on the right side. Even though the actual margin, I believe, is even, that orange bar is pushing everything over another, I don't know, some amount.
Yeah, right. It needs, in order to look visually weighted or even, you usually want to have equal white space on the left side and the right side. And I think that orange bar takes away from that white space and makes it look a little like left hand heavy, if that makes sense. I think if they weren't wasting so much space, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But I think the resume is just a game of how well you can use the space on the page. And I don't think that this is like a good way of doing that. Also, I didn't mention this before, but I have to kind of hunt for important information on this resume. Here, let me hide my doodles. Like one of the most important things, I think, if you're a new grad, is your graduation date, because that helps the hiring manager know, like, oh, is this person a good fit for an internship? How much experience have they had in school? Like what are they a sophomore? Are they a senior? And that is here. I usually expect to see expected graduation date directly to the right of your degree or directly to the right of your education, or directly to the right of your school. So I don't think that that is emphasized very well enough. And they even put their GPA above that, which I don't think the GPA is as important as the date you're going to graduate. And then, of course, again, as we were saying, all of the bold academic society is just, it's definitely drawing my eye, even though it's like not that important or not that like strong of a section.
And then we saw before the recording started the newest iteration of this, where we clearly understood that this is actually 2 majors, and that's not clear here.
That's. Thank you for pointing that out. The industrial engineering listed here and the manufacturing engineering listed here. Those are 2 separate degrees. And that is, as Jade said, that's super unclear right here. Usually I would say put like the date of graduation by each degree. So they would say industrial engineering, March 2022, manufacturing engineering, March 2022. If it's like 2 separate degrees, 2 separate, diplomas. But that's not clear at all here. So this is kind of like the before, I guess, for like before and after of seeing a reformatting. So it's kind of cool that we get to see the same resume, but in like a different style after they've tried it. Do we have any last like comments on this? I wasn't going to go into the detail of the bullet points or anything like that. But does anybody want to say anything else before we switch to the after format, the other format?
Yeah, this might just be my personal preference, but I'd like to see more spacing between bullet points than there is between the lines within a bullet point.
That is a very good comment. So what Chase is basically saying is that if we zoom in here, that this space here in between the lines is the same as this space here in between the bullet points. And that is not helping to kind of group those bullet points like separate from each other. And I think that's a super great point. It definitely looks like they tried to do that so they would make it fill exactly to the end. No. Exactly to the end of the page. But I don't think it looks good or helps them. I think, yeah, Chase is right.
I'm a fan of one-line bullet points.
Okay.
That doesn't seem to be very popular anymore, but I like single-line bullet points when possible. And in a 2-column, that's very difficult
I don't know
to do.
if that's possible in 2 columns. You know what I mean? Like that's only what, like less than 10 words, right? It's probably like 7 words. So I think that they're probably a little wordy in their bullet points already. I'm sure they had to kind of work those bullet points to make it exactly the right length so it fills the page. Kind of play with that spacing and stuff like that. But yeah, I think a one-line bullet point on this resume would be pretty difficult to like communicate, all of the information that you need to. All right, are we good? Should we move on? All right, let's do it. So this is the same resume, but in a different format. Is this right? Yes. So same information. We see it's still not super clear that these are separate degrees. I think that they should like kind of write this twice to show that, hey, I'm getting 2 separate degrees. But they have them listed out here with like BS next to them. So that's an improvement. Overall, I know exactly, what order to read each item in. So I like that. I think that's a big improvement. The bold lines I actually don't hate. I think the margins on the left and the right side are a little wide. The ratio for me, the margins, like these margins here, versus like the margins on the top and bottom. I think the top and bottom are a little tight. Whereas the left and right are a little bit big, but that's just kind of personal preference, like visually. I think it's a lot clearer. They have their academic society in much bigger font than the bullet points, but it's moved down. It's not like the first thing on the list like it was in the other resume. I would probably tell them to. I think I remember talking to this person and they were like really pumped and really proud of their like, they were really active in their fraternity and stuff like that. But the real meat and potatoes is the experience section. And I think I was able to finally convince them that, hey, you should really focus on the experience section if you can. What do you guys think about this layout? Is it better? Is it worse?
I think it's way better.
Yeah, I think it's much easier to read. I always have like a few little like tweaks that are usually like personal preference. Like I was talking about the margins. I think the font size for the bullets could probably be a touch bigger, and then the font size for the titles could be probably a touch smaller. But those are just personal preference. I think the horizontal lines are doing enough to kind of break up the different sections. I don't think they really need the large font.
The spaces between the sections, you could tweak those a bit as well and make them a bit smaller. You could probably get another line or improve your margins.
Yeah, so this space here in front of the academic society is like 2 spaces, whereas the one between education and experience is only 1 space. Those are like tiny details though, that you don't notice during the 7 seconds that you get, looked at.
I see a lot of university and then city and state. Is that common?
Yes.
For mine, I always put university degree, and then
So
I don't
it's-
worry about city state.
It's common, but probably unnecessary, especially if you go to like a very popular school or it says the city like in the name. So like UCLA, or like then you don't need to say like Los Angeles again or like California again because it's in the name of the school. But like a few like smaller colleges, like I wouldn't really know, like Tulane or Temple. Like I don't know where those are off the top of my head.
Oh, Emory.
Do you go to those?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said something. But so that's kind of what I would say. It's not really necessary for the ones it's in the name, but for like smaller schools that don't have it in their name, maybe it would be a good idea. I kind of like that they bolded the dates. I think that's helpful to kind of separate it from the bullet points because sometimes the dates can get lost in the bullet points. But yeah, they took the I don't know if you noticed, but they took their skills section off and kept the technologies at the bottom. We'll zoom in on that. And so they just kept their software. They didn't include like statistical analysis. However, the stat graphics software, I'm assuming, corresponds to statistical analysis.
So is Minitab.
Yeah, and Minitab as well. You're right. So it would be kind of redundant if they listed, statistical analysis, but also like Minitab and stat graphics. And they probably talk about statistics in one of their bullet points. I'm hoping. So kind of having that separate skill section doesn't really help because it just is like saying the same thing over again. I know some people like to have skill sections where they just put keywords in, trying to get like ATS to pick up like certain, concepts, stuff like that. But I'm really of the camp that if you're a good fit for the job, you should be writing those keywords in your bullet points like naturally because you have that experience and you would be a good fit. So like instead of listing, finite element analysis in your, general skills section, like write about finite element analysis in your, bullet points. And you should be integrating your skills into your bullets anyways, but that's content. Sorry for getting into that. Let's get back to layout. So overall, thumbs up, I think, for this one. I think it's a big improvement. What do you guys agree?
I think it's a big improvement. I had one additional question back at the top. So on my resume, I include my address so that the managers can see where I live and be able to calculate the commute and if I wouldn't be needing to relocate, things like that.
Okay.
And the last few that I've seen you do, I don't think anybody has done address. Of course, these are censored, so we don't know, what was cut off. But
yeah, I think if they had included their address, they would probably say something like double line city, comma state. However, I think if you are open to relocation, it shouldn't. So here, let me try to explain this properly. I think if you list your city state, and you are only looking like in that area and you don't want to relocate, then that's fine. But if you list like, I don't know, Houston, Texas, but you're willing to relocate, what does the Houston Texas part may only hurt you. If you don't list the Houston, Texas, and they don't know where you're living, then they just assume you would need to relocate, or they would ask you, right? If they were interested. But if they don't want to look into helping you relocate, then that would kind of throw you maybe at a slight disadvantage. Does that make sense what I'm trying to explain?
Yeah, I think so.
And it's not like people are going to like mail you things anymore. So it's not really needed as a method of contact.
No, I leave it as a reference for commute times and things like that.
Yeah, which is fine if if you're restricted to a certain geographical area. But a lot of new grads are okay with moving. And I think that's why you probably don't see so many on the resumes that I've done, because I do a lot of new grads, because there are a lot of them. Yeah, I don't know what positives, like what would be the benefit if you were like applying to a job, far away, listing your location. Do you have a different thought about that? I mean, if you can, like, if you disagree, definitely prove me wrong, because that's just what I believe.
I mean, it's it's just it's something that I have done, and I've never undone it. But I started back when it was possible that people may consider mailing you something. Just to date me a bit. I know that for relocation, if they are going to help you relocate, it costs way more to relocate somebody from the other side of the U.S. than somebody a couple of states over.
That's very
that
true.
may be a deciding factor for them. They don't want to pay somebody $10,000 or $15,000 to move from New York to California, but they'll pay a couple thousand to move them a few towns over.
That's true. Okay, I can see that angle. However, then it kind of gets you into the weeds of like, well, how far is too far? Like, do I keep my city state, like, if I'm applying to a town like a couple, hours away, or, I think that if you leave it off, they will ask you. And if it's too far, then they'll just say no. But I think that getting that initial interview and making them ask isn't necessarily a bad thing. I don't know.
No, that makes good sense.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I won't, beat the dead horse, but yes, that's what I believe. Any other last minute questions before we switch to a different resume? Overall thoughts, opinions, feelings?
On that note, I will say that I've had it happen to me once where in an interview I was asked, do you plan on commuting from, at the time, Alabama to New Mexico every day for work? And I got asked that, I think, twice, actually. But so that kind of hurt me. But it was also on me because I don't think I explicitly said, I'm looking to relocate. I kind of just said, no, I would be moving or something like that, as if it were a concession for me.
Okay. So you were so you're okay with them not sponsoring the move versus them sponsoring the move, sort of thing?
I don't know. I think I could have just been a little more explicit when I was talking with them, but I still think it's kind of ridiculous that they would even ask if I'm planning on traveling several states every day.
One of my husband's coworkers flies in every day by plane. So I don't know. Maybe that would be more realistic. But I totally see that. happening, but I guess that kind of becomes a question of like, are you willing to relocate, like, or do you not want the job? Sort of. Is that kind of the right interpretation of what they're saying?
Yeah, and I had been forewarned earlier that they preferred to hire internally. So
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe they were hoping that I would say, "Oh, I'm actually planning on moving in the area anyway," or something like that.
Yeah, like, oh, I was gonna, move into, New Mexico without your financial help.
Which even if I was going to do that, I think I would have tried to play it off anyway to try and get some relocation assistance. But oh well. But off that topic, I also wanted to say I think on the last version of this resume, Jade had made the comment about wanting the bullet points to be more readable.
Mhm.
And I feel like that this resume kind of takes a step backwards in that regard. I don't know if it's just the font of the bullet points or if it's the contrast with the larger, or with the more bold font. But and it could just be the streaming being a little blurry.
Yeah, that might
But
be it.
it really isn't as easy to read, I feel, as the last one was.
Yeah. I don't know. Let me switch back to the other one real quick, and we can see. So this one, I know, but I want to see like the difference. Do you think it's the font? The font is different for sure. It seems slightly bolder in this navy blue than the other one. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree with Chase.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the line, the font in the other one is just skinnier.
But overall, format-wise, I do agree that I think this is an improvement.
Yeah. Yeah. And the bullet points are closer to one line, which makes Jade happy.
Yes.
All right, let's look at a different one now. This one is like sort of 2-column. It's like a really skinny 2-column where they have the side titles on the left rather than like, on top of the where am I looking for? Oh, I'm looking for this. And let's see what we got. We got their contact information top right. Education section's a little gray. Make it stand out a little bit. Then we've got horizontal lines breaking up as well. All of the dates are right justified. The bullet points themselves seem to be quite narrow in terms of like margin wise. Like they don't go all the way to the right hand side, and they're obviously not going all the way to the left hand side because they got the 2-column thing going on. Was this considered a 3-column resume? I don't even know.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't really call this a 2-column. I mean, I would say this is still a 1-column. They have made some stylistic choices.
Stylistic choices.
I would say that this is still a 1-column resume in my opinion.
Okay. That's fair enough.
Just because there's no data in your other columns.
Well, there's data. It's just, only at the top, right? Only at that first cell. So what do you guys think? Do you guys like it? Do you hate it? Do you wish something was different?
My 7-second look, I like it, but the more I look at it, the less I like it.
Okay.
It's
allowed?
very visually appealing for that first 7 seconds, but then as you start looking into it, all of these bullets are extremely short. They are all one line, which is nice, but that's only half a page of one line of bullet. There's not a lot going on there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's very true. So the experience bullet points in particular are very short. They get a little bit longer with the project section down here. Maybe start to encroach into the date region a little bit. But overall, very short bullet points. The only 2-line bullet points are in the project section, which is fine. I think we worked a little bit on content here with this one. How do you feel about the dates on the right hand? They're italicized. They use numbers and slashes instead of like writing out the months or abbreviating months. Go ahead.
I don't mind. I kind of like it.
Awesome. They also do the city state underneath the dates for all of the positions. No. I personally am worse at reading number dates than like written dates. Maybe that's just me. It definitely takes up less room to write the numbers, right? It's a lot like fewer characters in general. But I find it, I actually have to think like, January, February, March, April. But maybe I'm just, a little slower about that. So if we look at sort of kind of a similar, where is the text in this resume? The text is here. Ooh, that's nice and bold. We get some here. And we get here and here. And then we have, these guys. And then we have, these guys.
The bottom section breaks from the theme because it looks like they're trying to stay away from going underneath the dates, but there doesn't seem to be a clear amount that they're trying to stay away from. And then even there's that bullet there that does kind of protrude beyond and does go under the date. And it doesn't make sense what they were trying to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that the what is it called? The new line margin, I guess right hand margin, or that where the run over goes and makes a new line. Maybe if it was a little bit like if none of the bullet points went under the dates, then honestly, then it would really limit even more so their space on the page to write, right?
Well, no, I agree, but it looks to me it looks messy because the middle section it has a pretty good gap completely separating it.
I see what you're saying.
And then when you go down, it gets much messier.
Yeah, we're talking about like this gap here, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then here it's like, a little bit encroaching, a little encroaching, a little encroaching.
And that gap is gone as well.
Right.
We've gone completely underneath the dates, and that nice defining gap is missing.
Yeah. I think it's improved in this section where they probably are better at describing their, what they did in the terms of the content of the bullet points. But the format is no longer working to their advantage, I think.
I think that gap might just be a happy accident. Well, an accident, really. Since, because we established earlier, all those bullet points are just one line, right? So
they're really short. Yep.
Right. Short. Maybe that was intentional. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know, but.
Yeah. So I think if they had that same gap, it would look cleaner. If they ended here and did a new line, then maybe their formatting would, look a little bit nicer. I know some people are really for left justification, and some people are really for full justification. I think that this is obviously they're for the left justification here. But if you look overall at the space on the page and where they actually have content, the left-hand stylistic choice and the right-hand awkward new line kind of situation, they're really missing out on like all of this like free space, like that's the stuff where you can, add more words. And they should, I personally think that they should, improve these bullet points, make them a little longer. But then you're like, oh crap, I don't have this night white space to like, distinguish my dates from my actual bullet points anymore. So
I think they could even keep the indent, but I would move it over like 3/4 of the way over. And then you can harvest a lot of that space and still keep your indent if that style is something that really appeals to them.
Keep their left-hand indent is what you're saying?
Yeah, but make it like one tab instead of that full column.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying. I think what they wanted is here, let me hide it. They wanted it to be the size of this, like, the word. I think they probably picked the longest word and it's like, okay, I'm going to make it that size. But yeah, I think that they are not really using the space on the page to their advantage. Let me zoom in a little bit more. I think that the gray section at the top is actually kind of nice. I don't know what you guys think. It's like, it doesn't bother me. I don't hate it. I'm looking at that section first anyway, so it's kind of a nice emphasis. But I guess it doesn't really like help or hurt, really. Maybe. I don't know. What do you think?
This looks like something that I've seen before. Like having those words on the side and then having it over. Is it some kind of legal document that does that? This looks very familiar to me. I'm not sure where I'm placing it.
I might have looked at this resume before in the past. I don't know if I brought it up the last time we did templates. That might be it. But I have seen this. It might be like a popular resume format, like online that people just happen to find and use. I don't know if there's I'm not familiar with necessarily like a document that uses this format, but I have seen it multiple times for resumes. And I just don't think that the cleanliness of the left hand like title column is worth like losing that space. So that's what it is. I know you guys probably liked it as soon as you looked at it for 5 seconds, but then actually starting to read the bullet points, it kind of fell apart a little bit. I think that's my consensus from your feedback, and I think I agree with that.
Yeah, I do have to admit, credit to them. Like I said, first 5 seconds, I kind of liked it. So something they're doing must not be that bad.
But then, like, I don't know, maybe it's just the lack of content that starts to show once you kind of delve in and actually read the bullet points.
Even without actually reading the bullet points, just looking at the length of them, how they're all one line, how they're all, 3 bullet points, 3, 4, 3, 2. It looks to me like they're trying to pad it out with more than they know how to say. Like they went and they worked as a 3D printing coordinator, but they haven't really figured out how to write out what their responsibilities were, or they just didn't actually have a lot to write about to begin with, and they're trying to pretend like they did.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you there. It definitely doesn't follow the star format that I like, or the Google XYZ format that is also good. Yeah, as we were saying, that once the bullet points got a little bit longer, the beautiful white space disappeared, and it wasn't as nice as we liked it at the beginning.
It does seem to me like they have a lot that they want to say about their projects, which I think is good. We've talked before about how projects tend to show more passion. And in this case, I think it would be worth getting rid of one or two of those experiences so that you have more room to talk about the projects.
Yeah, I think the formatting is working to their disadvantage. I don't know if they're overreaching in terms of their experience and underreaching in terms of their projects. But yeah, content-wise, I think it also needs to be rebalanced and like focused kind of into their strongest items versus just 3D printing a bunch of stuff for other people. Sound good? Are we good with this one? I think I have one more. And then we can do a free for all. All right, let me get that one up. Oh no, this one's might be a little bit fuzzy. Is this too fuzzy?
It's
a little fuzzy, but I'm full screen.
All right. I will go over it fast again then if it's not great quality. I really wanted, this was just something I downloaded on from Google Images. I just searched resume format simple or something like that. And this kind of does the same thing as the last one where it has the titles on the left and then kind of the dates all the way right justified. How do you feel about this one? It's obviously kind of a little more old school, if that makes sense to you. I think of it as one of a more old school, and not just because the dates are in the 90s and the 80s, but in general, it seems old school to me.
It really fills out the page, but I feel like it's more so the font size.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out is it the font that makes it because there's so much less information in this resume than there was on the previous one, right? I think it's so much less, but it doesn't look emptier. So I'm trying to think it must be the font or the way they're laying it out.
They do go all the way to the right-hand edge.
That's true. That's true. It might be a crappy quality sort of thing that it's actually supposed to be this tiny. I don't know, but I think they kind of have a similar problem to the last one, whereas the bullet point space is really only what 3/4 of the page, I'd say, lengthwise. And that's fine if you don't have a ton of experience, but when you're really trying to squish as much as you can onto one page, and you're at risk of going over to page number 2, then maybe this isn't the right way to lay your resume out. I think it's kind of got the same thing going on. I mean, granted, it doesn't have the right-hand column of all the dates, which I think helps a little bit because it's kind of integrated here, or whatever for the dates. So it goes under the dates, so it gets a little bit more space to the right. But the left-hand side, again, I just don't think it's worth basically having all that white space just so you can kind of emphasize your top level titles. Does that make sense? Do you guys agree? maybe.
I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other.
Yeah, it's just like on first glance, it looks like, oh, like they have like the whole page filled, but then you're like, wait, this isn't actually that much. I think they have like 3 bullet points on their whole friggin' thing. Yeah. That was kind of, I just wanted to like kind of do sort of an in between of like a left hand title column, but having the dates integrated as opposed to the last one. Thoughts? What do you guys like the best one? Did you like this one the best? I thought this was the strongest in my mind.
Yes, I think so.
Wise.
Yeah, I think I agree.
Okay. I don't have any more, but we can go and look through more if you want. What time is it? What do we got? All right, it's almost been an hour. I think that's. Does anybody have any last more minute questions?
I will say I think adding the BS up there by their majors, I feel like that clarifies it enough in my eyes that it's 2 separate degrees. I have mixed feelings about the comment you made about putting the date by each of them, just because my first thought on that is that it's redundant, but it does help show that it's not 1 degree after the other. It's actually, they're getting 2 degrees at the same time, putting the extra effort into it. And I think that's worth recognizing.
I like the 2 dates. I also have 2 degrees, but I got them at different times. So, but I do know people who have gotten 2 degrees at the same time, and communicating that to me has always been confusing.
Yeah, and I know some people who maybe have graduated, like gotten 1 degree, like maybe 1 or 2 years earlier than the second, even though they were both 4-year degrees. So they were kind of like offset by a little bit. So it's helpful, I think, to kind of show where you are in, the grand scheme of things for both of the degrees. It might feel redundant, but otherwise, like if it's at the top like this, then I'm assuming you're getting both degrees by March 22. But there is a slight question mark. And I think if they just write it down twice, then there won't be that question mark at all. Sound good? Everybody good? Any other questions? All right. Well, I gotta go feed the puppies, but I appreciate everybody tuning in and watching the video. And I guess I'll see everybody next week. Let's do something other than I think I will go back to content next week, and we can delve into some bullet points and get the nitty gritty going again. Since it's been a minute since we've done that. But yeah, thank you guys for joining. I appreciate it. I always like having someone to talk to, so it's not just me by myself. So that makes me happy. So thank you guys.
And thank you for sharing with us, Emily.
Yeah, no worries. All right.